p.m. and everyone's here, so we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So welcome everyone to the February meeting of the Union Township Planning Commission. Roll call, please.
Cody.
Here.
Squattrito.
Here.
Webster.
Here.
Fuller is here. Darren.
Here.
Shingles.
Here.
Buckley.
Here.
Thering.
Here.
LaBelle.
Here.
All present.
Thank you. Perfect attendance. So we last met on January 21st, so we'll take up first the approval of the January 21st minutes. They're in your packet. Are there any corrections to the January 21st minutes?
Motion to approve. Support.
So there was a motion by Webster to approve the minutes as prepared, with a second by Cody. Is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we have our minutes. We'll move on to correspondence, board reports, and presentations. So, board reports. Anything from the Board of Trustees?
The board, we appointed Alex Fuller and Philip Squattrito and have not decided on the third spot. So Denise Webster will be filling in until she either moves or,
Or you appoint?
yes.
Okay. Anything else?
No.
Any questions for Denise, or, excuse me, for Lisa? Okay. And by the way, I thank the board for their vote of confidence. Anyone who's tired of looking at this, I guess it's just tough, but we'll deal with it. And congratulations to Alex. Let's see, ZBA, anything from ZBA?
We actually had a late special meeting. Our prior meeting was the day before our meeting, the last meeting we had, and I don't believe we've had anything since. We didn't have a meeting at the beginning of the month this month, so nothing new to report.
Okay. Any questions for ZBA? Sidewalks and pathways?
We did not meet in February, so nothing to report.
Okay. Any other reports that anyone has? Any correspondence that we need to be aware of? Then I'll turn it over to Rodney for a brief presentation. You have on your desk a couple of extra documents. One relates to the agenda, which we'll take up, but then there's this other document about draft motions, so.
Thank you. Everybody should have basically two sheets that have draft motions for two of the items that are on your agenda this evening. One for the home occupation permit application and the other one for the group daycare home special use application. And these are essentially were set up as a template for you to use as you wish. It's an experiment to see, get some feedback on if this is something you'd like to see in the future. What we did is we set up each of the possible motions: a motion to approve, a motion to deny, a motion to postpone, and a motion to approve with conditions. Where there's something that related to our staff report, such as a conditional approval, we included the conditions that were recommended in the staff report in that part of the motion. But even with that, for example, with the home occupation permit, there's a draft motion to deny, and we included two items that are from the ordinance, so that if you went that direction, you have some language that's taken essentially directly out of the relevant section of the ordinance that can be used to cite for as support for a denial motion. So we tried to give you a full range, and also, of course, give you plenty of room to add to it if you choose. But this is essentially to give you some a framework to work from as you're putting motions together. So Happy to have feedback on it as you use it. If you're comfortable with it, we'll use it again in future meetings and go forward from there.
Any questions on that right now?
Well, on this, let's just take this group daycare home application, says motion to approve, but really we're recommending to the township board, correct?
That is true, yes. And
Okay.
and that's a tweak that,
So maybe that one right
Recommend
there would
approval,
be
yeah.
a
Yep.
little different wording,
Right.
maybe. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they're being put forward as something that could be helpful to us
Yeah, I
or
agree.
not. And we've, I think, been relatively careful to try to get our motions right, but we can always use, some additional advice and guidance, so.
So, is the intent to keep this for our formal records, and also, like, if we do a site plan review, we would hand this back to the developer or whoever?
well, what will happen with this, essentially, if you use the format, it obviously helps with the minutes, because it saves Jennifer time, and she can simply add in the elements that are added in. But really, this is a tool for you. So the minutes will still be what is sent out ultimately to the applicant, but this is really just a tool for you as you're building a motion.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but an applicant on a site plan review, they get a copy of the site plan back with the conditions written on it, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, all right. Okay, anything else under that category, correspondence, board reports, or presentations? If not, we'll move on to approval of the agenda. So our agenda was duly and lovingly prepared, but since then, a couple things have happened. One, you have a copy of an email exchange between Rodney and the applicant on the text amendment, requesting that the text amendment application be withdrawn. Essentially, they met and there was a discussion, which kind of is summarized in your packet, that the current thinking is to let the new zoning ordinance proceed and to deal with it through that. So that one, so item 9B would be withdrawn. And then I was informed just before the meeting started that 9A, the home occupation permit, the gentleman wanted to bring one of his relatives to assist in the communication, and that person wasn't able to be here tonight, so they've requested a postponement till March. So do we, as far as the withdrawal, do we need to formally accept it?
It doesn't need to be my motion. At this point, the application has been withdrawn, so the simple acknowledgement as you've done, I think, is sufficient there.
Okay, so we'll consider 9B to have been withdrawn, and then, I guess more or less same question, should we have a motion to postpone consideration of 9A?
Yeah, that I would recommend.
Okay.
So moved.
So a motion by LaBelle to postpone consideration of HOP 20-01 until our March meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Shingles. Further discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. So now I would entertain a motion to approve our agenda with items 9A and B struck from it.
So moved.
Support.
Motion by Webster, second by LaBelle to approve the agenda as amended. Any discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we have our agenda. Public comment. So at every planning commission meeting, we have a portion of the meeting towards the beginning which is allocated to public comment. This is a portion where individuals are invited to address items that are not on tonight's agenda. So anything that's a public hearing or anything that is on the agenda will be dealt with in turn. So this is really comments on other items. So if there's anyone who would like to address the planning commission on any item that's not on tonight's agenda, they're invited to do so at this time. We just ask you to give us your name and address for the minutes and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Public comment is open at 7:10. And seeing none, we'll go ahead and close that back up. There'll be extended public comment later. So we're ready to move on to new business. We have one new business item. It is a special use permit application, 20-01. The applicants are Robert and Lauren Welch, 4175 East Wing Road, and it is for a home daycare. And so this is going to include a public hearing, then we'll hear from the applicant, there'll be deliberation, and then possibly action. So at this point, I guess I will ask Rodney to introduce the topic, if you'd like to do so.
Yes, as you said, this is for a group daycare home. This is as licensed by the state of Michigan for up to 12 children for daycare. As you may know, there's two types of licenses. The family daycare home licenses that we have no say over. Somebody can simply have that license and occupy any home with it, up to 6 children. But for the larger group daycare home license, we can and do require a special use permit. And there are specific standards in the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act that we follow that are referenced in our ordinance. So that's the purpose of the application tonight, is to review what they presented based on those standards. And we have provided a report dated February 18th that lays those details out.
Okay, thank you. And this action requires a public hearing, so the item has been duly published in the newspaper, and the property owners within 300 feet have been notified by mail and so on. So we'll start with the public hearing, and this is an opportunity to give the general public an opportunity to comment on this application. I'll just remind everyone that the applicant will have their own separate opportunity to present their application and to stand for questions. So really at this time, we're wanting to hear from the general public. So with that, we'll open the public hearing. We want to give everyone who wants to speak an opportunity to speak, so we'll ask anyone who wants to speak to give us your name and address for the minutes. Address your comments to the Planning Commission and limit your comments to 3 minutes. Once everyone who wants to speak has had a chance to speak, we'll consider recognizing people for additional comments. So the public hearing on special use permit application 20-01 is open at 7:13. Were there any written comments received on this?
There were none.
Okay, so let the record also mention there were no written comments received. And seeing no one jumping to the microphone, let the record show that no public comments were offered. If anyone walks in the door in 30 seconds, desperate to make a comment, we'll let them do so, but for all intents and purposes, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. So at this point, we'll give the applicant an opportunity to make a statement, anything you'd like to say about what you're wanting to do, and also, I'm assuming you'll answer any questions that the commission has.
Hi, it's me probably. So I'm Kelly Klein, not Lauren Welch. She is out of town, unfortunately, but I will be working with her in the home to start this daycare. And they just built a new home, and it'll be eventually the basement will be finished with access to be able to get out. We have a 2-lane drive, so there would not be any parking on the streets. Designated parking for myself because I would be there working with her, so I would have my own designated parking area. Also, if anyone needed to stay over for talking, any concerns or anything, we were going to have a designated parking area set aside for that. So there we had a pickup policy for dropping off and picking up as well. And then I think And as of right now, there is no fence. The house was just built and finished in October, so it's all dirt back, all everywhere, in the front and in the back, it's all dirt. So, as of right now, there's no fencing, because the outside would not be used, until there would be grass and the outside established, so there's that as well. Any questions for me?
Yeah, it's open for questions.
Do you guys plan on having set operating hours?
Yes, we do. We haven't quite started that yet, like, gotten into that part of what time, we will be starting, but yes, we will have them, and it won't be, definitely not longer than 16 hours for sure. But we have not actually discussed, since there will be the two of us, and we have a few kids, waiting for this, but not the whole, so we're not really sure, what people need either, kind of thing, because working at a hospital, I know some people need 7 o'clock, some need a little, at 6, so, that has not been established yet, like,
Okay.
operation.
Do you have a date set in mind for when you're hoping to be operational?
We don't, only because we still getting everything up and running, and then we weren't sure when we'd find out the
Sure.
answers from this, so we don't have a date
Okay.
yet. No.
I guess I'd like to ask Rodney and Peter, the materials the recommendation includes a list of items that you're suggesting be supplied to kind of complete and flesh out the application. Have these been shared with the applicant?
Yes, they have.
Okay. Because there's an indication that the fence would be required if the children are going to eventually play outside. And I'm assuming, although right now they probably wouldn't necessarily be playing outside, but eventually it's going to be warm enough that they will be. Are there plans to put in a fence?
Yes, there is. Right now it's all dirt, so
Mhm.
it wouldn't be until they have established some grass, because we wouldn't want to be taking the kids out in the dirt,
Mhm.
But when I talked to Lauren, her ideas were for a fenced-in area, like behind the garage. But yeah, she has got to get the grass first before we get the kids out there. So that I'm not sure if they're gonna just try to grow grass, because then I would feel like that would take good establishment to get grass
Mhm.
going. You couldn't be on for a while. I don't know if they plan on maybe putting sod down maybe in an area to put a fence there to at least get, that it could be a little bit better and get that done faster. I'm not too sure what their complete thoughts are on for that, but I know she is gonna put up a fence, yes,
Okay.
and that they wouldn't be outside until there was a fence.
Mhm.
So the driveway is 2 cars wide anyways?
Yes, it
Okay.
is. Yep. The garage is actually 2
The
cars.
two-car garage.
Yep, and then the driveway itself is 2 cars.
So there should
See
be
it.
adequate space for employee parking.
Yes, yep.
Has there been any conversations on how to efficiently do the pickup and drop off? As it's mentioned in here as one of the conditions?
I have, let's see. She did do a pickup and drop off policy. Do you want me to, I have one right here. Would you guys like
Yep.
this up
But is
there?
that more from a traffic standpoint?
Or-
That is correct. What we're looking for is basically for safe maneuvering of vehicles in and out of the site. the sketch that they provided, I know it's rough here, but they're essentially showing a parking area on either side of the driveway. Well, there's nothing there right now. And that certainly could be a turnaround, essentially allowing people to turn off the driveway, back out, and then go back down the other side of the driveway. They just need to think about how people are going to maneuver in and out, because especially for the end of the day pickup, many people will be coming very close to the same time. And so having a plan and having a physical arrangement on the site to ensure that people can get in and out easily, and so they're not trying to pick up children from the road, for example, will be important.
And that seems very clear in bullet point number 1.
Right.
So I'm sure Lauren and Walsh could work with Peter.
Yeah, there's definitely room, because it's still a new driveway, so there's definitely room to make it however, make it work, to make it accessible. I can pretty much clean plate, like we can do anything. It's not anything set so, because there is the area to make what needs to be made to make it easy to drop off and pick up.
Okay. And Rodney, how firm is this? It looks like preferably, like, plans for any required parking, access, and fence improvements should include a specific date, preferably no later than May 31st, 2020, when, which each improvement shall be completed or will be completed. Is that like a firm date, or are we?
No, this is a date. I mean, after hearing what's been said about the backyard, obviously the grass is highly unlikely to be ready by that time in the backyard. So what we're looking for is simply a date certain and in a reasonable time frame. So we're not going out to December, for example, for
Sure.
these things. But
Okay.
all we're really looking for is have a specific plan. Here's what's going to happen. Here's when it's going to happen. That you then can review and approve, and it becomes part of the special use permit
Okay.
going forward.
That's what I was thinking, the fence, with what she's explaining. I'm thinking, I don't think the fence will be in by then.
Right. Yeah, but certainly what we're really looking for is simply the plan. This is where it's going to be, this is what it's going to look like, and this is the drop dead date by which it will be done.
Okay. So there's some wiggle room there.
So your role is an employee?
Yes.
Okay. And what, I mean, is there a sense of what hours you would be working?
No, we have not discussed that yet. It's still, but still getting everything going was, we figured was a little bit for later, a little more certain after knowing we had to do this part too. So, yeah, haven't got to.
Do you know if there'll be other employees?
It'll just be her and I together, and then we're gonna have some backups. Like, her husband's gonna be a backup. If he wasn't working, or so if I was sick or so, and her mother was gonna get certified and be a backup for same thing, like if I'm sick or if she's sick or something like that. But just when it's going, it'll just be 2 people, generally her and I.
Okay. So in most cases, when it talks about the employee parking, it would be one person.
Yes.
Most of the time.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Other questions for the applicant? So what, I gather the suggestion is to postpone taking a formal action on this until until these items have been submitted. What about in terms of us going down the kind of list of criteria for a special use permit? Do you think we ought to wait until the application is complete, or proceed with that?
I think there's enough items missing that it might warrant waiting to see the other details. This group daycare homes are somewhat unique in that it is a special use permit, but the standards that apply really are the specific standards for group daycare homes. The state act says that these are the only standards we can apply, and the only standards that really should be considered are the specific ones for a group daycare home. And that's where we get into the fencing, the hours of operation and such. But my thought is but overall, I think that I would recommend waiting until you have the more complete documentation before going into a detailed review.
And how do the commissioners feel about that?
I had a question quick again. Did you say that the basement was not finished at this point?
It's not full, it's finished, but it's not like, there's gonna be more, things added to it, but it is a finished basement, like.
Is the use of that space I mean, if you're going to use a basement as a space for daycare, is that something that's, I mean, is there an approval process that you go through with the state in terms of the license or anything like that, or do you know how that works? Or
I'm so sorry, I'm not quite sure for
Okay.
that with the licensings, like to go, like that we went through. I'm unfortunately not sure about
Okay.
that part, sorry.
Okay.
With the terms of where at in the
Yeah,
house, like,
yeah.
to be honest. I know there was some things, like, obviously you'd have to have in a basement, like, it clear, and
Right.
access to get out if there was a fire besides,
Right.
But for the regulations of that point, what is starting with, as well, the basement, before we'd even have the kids down there, she was just gonna be using upstairs in her home. And, cause right now, we both work at McLaren in the lab. So once we had enough kids, then Lauren was gonna quit and she would do that. And so she was just gonna be upstairs until they finished, like carpet and deciding exactly that kind of stuff, what they wanted down there. So that wouldn't be used until later. That was the plan for that.
Sure.
But it will be, like, it is all safe in the sense of getting it in and out.
Okay.
Like that.
That is the long-term business plan. is
Yes, yes,
To use
yes.
the is
Yes.
to use the basement.
And not hopefully that long either. Just got a brand new home. I wouldn't blame a bunch of kids up there. But yeah, so that's the long term, which like we're gonna start working on that, shortly, the painting and like that kind of stuff. Yeah.
I can speak to some of that stuff because my wife does operate a daycare home, and they are heavily regulated and regularly visited by the state licensing board. So it's just something they do annually, and they get multiple visits during the year for safety violations and things like that. So
I guess what I'm driving at is that I'm probably in support of postponing this because I'd like to see a few more items. But I guess what I'm driving at is that if we can't use the backyard until there's a fenced-in backyard, but there's also not the basement is not where it may need to be in order to use a basement as space, then I'm just concerned about the overall space that's available for the kids. I think if we have a plan and a timeline for when the parking situation is as well as when it's going to be fenced in, summer hits, kids are going to want to go outdoors. If they can't go outdoors, but they can't be in the basement either, then I'd like to see more of these things fall into place, or at least timing for when they're going to be, before we take too many steps to approve a special use.
Is it your sense that the Welches want a sense how the predictability of whether they'd get a special use permit before they invest in this?
I wouldn't. They are gonna do it anyways. Like that, they are gonna. I know they are gonna do it anyways. They are.
If they get a special use permit?
Yeah. No. Yeah. I don't mean the daycare. I meant to the basement. I'm sorry. Yeah. No. Not the daycare. I didn't mean that. Yes. They are. They are still gonna be finishing the basement. Down there still.
But I guess what I was asking, are they gonna be pursuing, are they waiting to see how we react tonight as to whether or not they pursue the special, or putting a daycare at this residence?
Yes, yeah, cause it would just, I mean.
You have to, it's a
'cause we-
condition of the license.
It
to get
is,
a
but
zoning
it's,
approval.
so with postponing this, it doesn't move them
Doesn't move
forward
them.
faster. It
But at this
actually-
point, they don't have an open date yet.
No, I
as
don't
it is,
disagree, don't
so-
disagree. I
They
mean,
don't have
I've
a
got.
license date, because they don't
Right.
have an
That's
approval
right.
from the local agency.
Right.
Again, from what is being discussed is, and as Roddy said, is we would have to have a more specific plan about these items that we're concerned about. And by working with them is, give us the plan, and then we can move forward.
Yeah.
Again,
Right.
I don't think anybody's in opposition of the special use
No,
permit.
no.
It's just, do we have a plan to complete these items that then allow you to move forward and then go to the state and so forth? So, I mean, I think it's reasonable that we would postpone, and it's very clear about the plan, and that they work with the staff to complete the plan, and then come back to us.
Well said.
Agreed.
That seems reasonable to me.
Yeah.
But I think they need to hear
Well,
that,
but
right?
I think they have they not? They've already heard
Yeah.
these items, have they not? They've already heard that they needed these plans in order for us to go forward. That would be a concern.
Timeline, more or less.
Yeah.
Well, and there are just too many questions that are unanswered at this point. And obviously, standing in for the owners, you're not able to answer all the questions, especially related to timeline.
Right, right,
And because it's clear what has to be compliant
right.
before we move forward. But I think recommendation to postpone it makes sense and come back answering the questions of timeline
Right.
and all of those things then would allow us to make a decision, because I don't hear opposition.
Right,
There's no
just
public
need-
comment that has
right.
been opposed to this, so at this point, I think if we just get the questions answered, then we
Gotcha.
can move forward.
Yeah, for sure.
Did you say they're away right now, or?
Yes, they're in Florida.
Do we know, because I believe what I saw in here was to be on the March agenda, this material needs to be submitted by March 2nd. So they've been told that as well, right? Okay, so,
However, if they in fact would not come back and say March and they need more time, we could postpone again.
yeah,
Yes, you could.
Yes.
yeah,
And give them enough time, so, our goal would be to go to the March, but if the applicant would say, oh, I need more time, then
Give them more time.
we would give them more time.
no, that's right. I'm just saying, in terms of moving it along, there are these deadlines.
And I guess for clarity, do you understand what's needed?
Yeah,
Or do
so
you-
we need, I was gonna, I did wanna touch on that.
Gotcha.
So, a date for a fence, some timeline. Is there a timeline that you guys want? The date for the fence? I mean, do you want a
Do we
fence
need
up
a
without
date for
grass
the
so it's
fence?
there?
I don't think
Or
we-
the design.
I don't
fence?
know that we
Design.
necessarily,
Design.
yeah.
The date is
Just,
more Michigan.
Like where
state
it's
of
gonna
Michigan.
be, because I do have, I mean, I guess cause I do have another drawing, like with the fence on the back, I don't know what you want, where like, I don't know if that's what would be efficient
What-
enough, or if you're thinking, some more, and like some parking, like, it was kinda like the other one, there's the parking here, but
Yeah.
I don't know if you wanna look at this one, if that's at all any more answer
Well, the parking is gonna need the
different.
actual plan for how people are gonna egress and, well, bring their kids in, turn
Yeah.
around.
Kind of like a
and leave.
roundabout in there, like. you
Well,
think, like-
whatever the
could-
plan is for
Whatever.
how they're gonna get in
Gonna
and
be a
out
side
with
pad or
the
back up,
parking.
backing up and backing out, or,
So it can be, what else?
I think if you're, if you're providing us with some sort of diagram that shows us, I think the point that was made was that it's essentially a single lane, and so pulling in, pulling out you're gonna be backed up. Anything.
It is a double lane,
It is a double lane?
yes.
Okay.
It
I
is
thought,
a-
when we were reading on a site visit, it said that it was a single lane, I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, was talking to me about that in, but it is a double lane, there's a 2-car garage. I've been there with multiple cars lined up down there, I don't know. She wasn't sure if cause it was snow or something, I don't know. She did mention that about that it said it was a single lane, but it was a double lane, it is a double lane?
May I make a suggestion, and I'm not disagreeing with it, is
No.
that, and at this point, in regards to make sure it's very clear, it sounds to me like Lauren and Robert, they need to come in and work with the staff and get a clear diagram that we are able to say, yes, this is what you're going to do, and that the staff is also helping us understand that, yes, this is an appropriate site plan, and again, it's not done by an engineer or whatever, so that we're very clear, that we have it in our packet, so that then we are able to
Make a decision.
make a decision from that point on. I just think that we're, at this point, and not, no offense, but we've got some things that can't be answered by this individual, and we would need a more clear diagram.
We have been working with the applicants, and they did receive a copy of the staff report with the specifics, and there have been some conversations along that line. Clearly, there's still some confusion, and we'll continue to work with them on that to try to make sure you have the information you need for next month.
I would agree.
So this time, can I make a motion to postpone?
I think so. Motion to postpone until the next meeting.
Yeah, unless you want me to read all of this. So,
Would it be best to put it in there, Mick?
The main benefit of having those items in there is it says specifically what we want from them. And that's the reason why we included it in the motion to postpone.
okay. Yeah, I'd make a motion to postpone action based on what's written here in our handout.
I would support.
Okay, so the motion is to postpone action using the provided sample motion. Motion was by LaBelle and was seconded by Webster. Further discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So as soon as they can get together and work things through, it'll come back to us and we'll act on it.
So, will it then be emailed to them, like how there was communication before, or do I need to?
How have you been communicating with the applicant?
We'll follow up with them.
Yo, okay, all right, so, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, guys.
Oh, no problem. So the next item is going to be zoning ordinance update. So once again, I'll turn it over to Rodney to give us an update on the zoning ordinance.
Well, thank you. So you're going to be seeing the I guess composite draft zoning ordinance as one full book. You've had opportunity to review chunks and pieces of the document. The document right now is being worked on by Chris Dusen from McKenna Associates. They submitted it to a draft to the township right before Christmas. As staff, we went through that document, and like any project, we came up with a punch list of details that need to be taken care of, and provided that punch list to Mr. Dusen, and he's working his way through that. He's given me a date of March 3rd as the date by which the document will be back in our hands. We're hoping it might be a day or two earlier than that, but that's the timing that we're looking at having it. We will have it in your hands as quickly as we can right after that to start the review process. Our goal is to have as much time as we can during the March and April meetings. Obviously, we have a couple of agenda items on the March agenda, but take them as much as we can of the March and April meetings to review the document and see where we go from there. The document will also be posted on a dedicated website that McKenna Associates is putting together, which will have an online comment form associated with it. We'll post a notice about that on the township website. So there'll be an opportunity to begin the public comment process as well. So as public comments come in, we'll pass those on to you. So as March and April meetings, expect to be going through the document. We also have scheduled the township has an annual meeting where all the boards and commissions meet together. That meeting is normally in September. During this last township board meeting, they rescheduled that for April 29th at 5 o'clock. You're going to get an invite to that as well as the other boards and commissions. It will be held over at the Commission on Aging facility where we met before. The zoning ordinance update will be part of that agenda as well. Mr. Dues will be there making a presentation, and there'll be an open house for the public that will also be published and available for anybody to come and comment on the ordinance associated with that. So that's essentially the starting of the adoption process, to review this document. Make sure what we're looking for is to make sure that this document is ready for a public hearing. So plan on March and April, plan on having some good reading material in early March to take a look at, and hopefully you like what you see.
Do you envision, so the document is obviously quite long. It's like 16 chapters, I think. Do you envision just kind of handing us the thing either electronically or in hard copy and say, read it? Or do you envision kind of giving us any sort of kind of
Cover this much for this
yeah,
meeting?
or guidance as to things we should be focusing on more than others, or that sort of thing?
Yes, my intention is to basically include a memo that kind of lays out a proposed framework for review. We certainly don't need to go through it page by page. There are some elements like the Zoning Board of Appeals. There are some pieces that are simply required. There's not really a whole lot of wiggle room that the state law simply says thou shalt do it this way. And for those items, we don't need to spend a lot of time on them. So the memo will be kind of aiming us at the key elements of it. I think the zoning districts, the various uses and where they're allowed in the districts, is that the way we like it? Looking at the procedures, site plan review, special use. There's going to be a substantially updated plan unit development element to this as an option, as well as significant updates to the site plan, the arrangement of the site plan section. So those are pieces that I think we'll certainly encourage you to focus on.
Okay. Very good. Other questions on the update? Okay, so something for us to look forward to. So, extended public comment. This is the portion of the meeting where individuals are invited to address the Planning Commission on any item, whether it was on tonight's agenda or not. Once again, we ask you give us your name and address for the minutes and limit your comments to 5 minutes. Extended public comment is open at 7:43. And seeing none, we'll go ahead and close that back up. Final board comment, any comments from board members?
I like the idea about what you've provided us in regards to the motions. My question is, should we read them for the record? Or as we did, again, this is the first time we've ever done this, is as Commissioner LaBelle does, says, whether it's written here, is if we're recording this and it's public and people can watch it, are we better off to actually read it?
That is a great question, and the answer to that question is yes. You're probably better off reading it because it's being recorded, because there are people that aren't in the room that will want to know what is on the document. Obviously, the document, whatever you approve will end up in the minutes, but in the moment, it would be best to read.
So in our future is, if we're going to go this, is there probably better off to actually read it in its entirety? Okay.
Well, and
Thank
I
you.
quite frankly think we have a duty to read it, because if not, this is being recorded, and we're making it difficult for the public, because now they have to go back and either reference the minutes or the board packet, both of which are public. And in this regard, we didn't get this part of the board packet early. We got it at the meeting today. So it's not even online as the other materials were. So I agree, it just, and I'm glad you asked that question. I was gonna ask Rodney after the meeting, because it just didn't seem like it was transparent as the
Right.
word that comes to mind, so, yeah.
For future. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments? I have a question, and I guess, I don't know if it's a dumb question or not, but why is there a P? The one we postponed tonight is a PSUP. What does the P stand for?
It's part of the BSA, it puts a P in front of every application. And so just for, I guess, a better way, if someone's looking up the files online of BSA, every file is gonna have a P. So we've added the P now to the applications. So a
But just- but-
PSUP and a P SPR and a P.
Why didn't the HOP or the TXT have them?
Because the HOP was filed before we started doing that.
Oh, okay. Oh, nice. All right. So it's just a kind of a computer code thingy. All right. Well, I guess I'll sleep better tonight. Anything else? Well, if not, then at the early hour of 7:46, we stand in adjournment, and we'll see people in March.
And